Hi, this is Professor Hinkinson, and I thought I would do a quick overview of the expectations for your final exam, as well as take a look at the questions and talk through the questions so that you can have some clarity about the questions on the final exam. After watching this, if you have any questions about the final exam, I'm around. You can call me, text me, or drop me an email. But this is just a quick video to give you sort of an overview of what to expect. So the first thing is that this exam, the expectations for this exam are really similar to the expectations for the midterm exam. It's the same format. It's essay questions. There are 6 essay questions, and you will be answering 4 of those. Also, that it covers all the material from since we took the midterm. So that's topics 7 through 12. And so, that my expectations are that when you're looking at the question prompts, you'll want to make sure that you answer all of the question prompts. Don't skip any of the prompts. You want your exam to be well developed. As you know, it's open book, open notes. And so as such, I'm expecting you to pull on all the course material from the course of the semester to answer these questions. And so that includes lectures, it includes the textbook, the cases that we've studied, and also any of the articles and books that we've read. And so you can definitely use the most dangerous branch when you're answering these questions. Now let's just quickly look at I'll share my screen so that you can see our Canvas site, okay? And so, I want to encourage you to look at the final exam information and study session. It just basically, has a link for your ability to get the final exam questions. It tells you how much the exam is worth. It's worth 150 points or 15% of your final grade. That the length of the exam is the same in terms of the midterm exam. So you'll be answering 4 questions. And so my expectation is that each answer will be about 2 pages long, double-spaced typed pages. If you do single-spaced, it's actually okay if you do single-spaced, if it works better for you. And so just kind of convert, it's sort of like, 1 page single-spaced is probably about 2 double-spaced, okay? But whatever works for you, I don't really care if you do it single-spaced. So it should be about 2 pages per answer. Like I said, for the midterm exam, if it's a little less, that's okay. If it's a lot less, you're gonna wanna develop your answer more. And if it's a little more than 8 pages total, that's okay. But when you're getting into the 12, etc. pages, then you're gonna wanna go back, and you don't need to tell me everything you know from what we've learned in the second half of the semester. A question that came up for the midterm is, does the questions count against your page total? Because I do like you to put the questions there. And the answer is no. You put the question there and it doesn't count towards your page total, right? So if you go a little over or under, don't think that the question itself is gonna add to your page count. I take that into consideration. So like the midterm exams, the best answers answer all the prompts. So don't skip over any of the prompts. You're going to want to use the course material when answering these questions. You don't have to use lecture, textbook, books or articles we've read in answering every question, but just when you take the totality of it, okay? Make sure you proofread. Okay, I know it's the end of the semester and everybody's burnt out, but do give it a good proofread just so that you're communicating your ideas as best as possible. And then just like we did for the midterm exam, you'll want to do in-text citations. You don't need a bibliography and you don't need to use external sources. Occasionally using external sources is okay, but really everything you need is in the course materials. And so do note, if you are using quotes from the textbook, you'll want to put those in quotation marks. And also don't use huge quotes. One line is good, but a paragraph is not good. I'm not testing your ability to cut and paste information from the textbook into your exam. You'll want to summarize that information and paraphrase that information in your own words. The completed exam is, I think I mentioned, you have until Monday to complete the exam. And late exams will only be accepted in extraordinary circumstances. If you think you're going to be late, you contact me and then we'll kind of go from there. Okay. All right. So let me now get out of this. And let's go ahead and take a look at your actual final exam, which you hopefully have downloaded by this time. And just let me see if I can make it a little bit larger here. All right, just so you can see it on your end. Now that is too large. Okay, so that information we already talked about. And let me put my magic pen on and I'm going to put it in something other than yellow. Okay. So make sure that when you download this exam that you save it to your desktop, hard drive, zip drive, so that you don't lose any material. My laptop just crashed. It was in the hospital for a week getting fixed. And I mean, my life was flashing before my eyes because I depend so much on my MacBook. Luckily, I was able to use my husband's laptop. So I know what it's like to be like worrying that you're losing your material. Everything's okay. It's all back in action and it's better than it was before actually. So make sure that you save your stuff to your desktop or a zip drive. It's the final exam. And so for the final exam, I know that some students always like to read their comments and they'll read the comments on the final exams. However, it's not my first trip to the rodeo. I've been teaching for over 20 years. And I know that some students are just like, they just want to see their score. They're not going to read the comments. They're just ready to get on with the summer. So I don't make comments unless you ask me to make comments. Okay, I've made a lot of comments for your work throughout the course of the semester, but on the finals, I'll give you comments if you want them. And if you do want them, please put that in the Canvas comments when you submit your exam. Just say, hey, Professor Hankinson, I love comments. I'm happy to oblige, okay? But if you don't want comments, just leave it blank and then I'll just give you a score. If you need clarification after you get your score, I'd be happy to give it to you, but I hesitate to make comments that are not going to be read here in the final stretches. So just let me know. Okay, so unlike the midterm exam, there's part 1 and part 2. Part 1, there are 5 questions, and you have to select 3 of these 5 questions, okay? Part 2, everybody has to answer the question. You don't have any choice on question 6. Everybody's got to answer question 6. So let's go over these questions in part 1. The first question has to do with hate speech. And so according to the court, hate speech receives First Amendment protections, but fighting words do not. For hate speech is protected speech, fighting words are not protected speech. Describe the reason the court extends First Amendment protections to hate speech, but not to fighting words, making sure to reference relevant cases from the textbook. Do you think that hate speech deserves First Amendment protections? Explain your answer. So pretty straightforward, okay? And in fact, we did a discussion on disinformation where we touched upon hate speech, and there's a lecture that's dedicated to hate speech. So this gives you an opportunity to dig in more deeply. The second question has to do with freedom of the press. And it says, despite the fact that the First Amendment reads, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of the press, the Supreme Court has recognized the need to limit the press in certain instances. And when we talk about the press, we're talking about the news media. We're not like just talking about newspapers. So explain the court's willingness to place restrictions on the press and under what circumstances such restrictions are warranted. Also, discuss the distinction made by the court between different types of news media. Is the court more or less willing to restrict the First Amendment rights of radio, TV, or print journalism? Explain your answer. And how has the court dealt with the issue of prior restraint? In what circumstances is prior restraint allowed? Okay, so here you get to dig into a lot of the different cases that are dedicated to press freedoms in the textbook, and you can pull upon all of those. Okay, question 3 has to do with the Fourth Amendment. It says that the Supreme Court has often stated that reasonableness is the ultimate touchstone of the Fourth Amendment. In your answer, explain what this means. Points to consider. How has reasonableness guided the court when it comes to deciding whether a search or seizure is legal/constitutional? What role does reasonableness play in defining what constitutes a search? What role does reasonableness play in getting a warrant or searching without a warrant? And what role does reasonableness play when it comes to searching students and automobiles? Those entities get a little bit less, and in some cases, a lot less Fourth Amendment protection. Finally, of the cases that we've discussed in the textbook, where do you disagree with the court's opinion when it comes to what constitutes a reasonable search or unreasonable search? Explain this disagreement. And so in that last, question there, pick a case or more than one case, so finally, of the cases discussed in the textbook, where did you disagree with the opinion of the court when it comes to what constitutes reasonable search? So the minimum is pick one case. If you want to pick more than one, that's okay, but it's not a requirement. It's not going to make your grade go up. Okay, the argument you make is what's going to make the grade go up. And so you're reading through that, that the chapter on the Fourth Amendment, and which one are you sort of like, whoa, I really disagree with the way the court ruled in this case, or I really I disagree because they thought that this search was reasonable, or I disagree because they thought this search was unreasonable and I thought that it was actually a reasonable search. Okay, so that gives you an opportunity to think critically about the Fourth Amendment. Question number 4 has to do with the right to counsel. Explain what is the right to counsel. In your opinion, is the right to counsel essential to a fair trial? Can you receive a fair trial without the right to counsel? Explain. And you could say that in some instances that you can receive a fair trial without the right to counsel. Or you might say absolutely not. If you don't have counsel, it's not a fair it's not a fair trial. So there's no right answer. It's sort of how you argue that. And how has the right to counsel evolved over time from the court's perspective? At what stages are the criminally accused entitled to counsel? Do you agree with the court's reasoning regarding the stages at which counsel should be provided? Why or why not? And so do you think that the right to counsel is too robust or not robust enough? And should counsel be provided to individuals over their expressed wishes to represent themselves? So you do, if somebody is like, no, I want to represent myself, should counsel be like so forced upon them? Explain. And the best answers will discuss key court cases that deal with the right to counsel, obviously. And then the fifth question is explain the court's approach to the Eighth Amendment. Points to consider. How does the court determine whether a punishment is cruel and unusual? Does the court find the death penalty to be cruel and unusual? There's a whole lecture that's dedicated to that. Why did the Supreme Court strike down Georgia's death penalty in Furman, but uphold it in Gregg only 3 years later? And do you agree with the holding of the court in Gregg? How about in Atkins? Explain and develop. Okay, so pretty straightforward. All right, so those are, you pick 3 out of those 5 questions. All right, now let's move on to the fun question that is sort of a comprehensive question for the semester. Okay, it's kind of cumulative. And so the question is describe what you consider to be the 3 most important things you learned this semester about civil liberties and or the Supreme Court. So you could say all civil liberties examples or all Supreme Court examples or a mix. Make sure to provide a well-developed description of the 3 things you find most important, as well as an explanation of why it is important to you. How will the things you learned this semester impact your life moving forward? How will what you learned impact your life as a person living in a democratic society? How will what you learned impact your life personally or professionally? And if you feel that what you've learned will have no impact on your life, that's fine. Explain why. And finally, how has your thinking about civil liberties and the court changed from the beginning of the semester until now? And make sure to explain your answer to these questions using court material or course material for support. Okay, so that's a fun question, and I'm really looking forward to reading your answers on that question. All right, let me stop the share. All right, so that's the quick overview of the questions and expectations. Like I said, I'm around, I'm grading, working on grading your second papers for the most dangerous branch. Like I said, those should be done mid-weekend. So good luck on your final exam, and good luck also in your future endeavors. Y'all are a bunch of really good students. It's been a really good semester, and I've really enjoyed reading your work and getting to know you in the discussions. And so I really hope you all the best in the future. Have a great summer. Good luck on your final exam. And I'll talk to you again soon if you take another one of my classes. Okay, bye-bye.